Hello everyone, welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy. I'm Ibrahim Adra. Tonight, we place the Nigerian consumer on the front burner. Let's examine his rights to quality products and services at the right price and how he could get redress when he is stripped or denied these rights. My guest tonight is Mr. Babatunde Rukera. Mr. Rukera is the Director General and Chief Executive of the Consumer Protection Council, CPC, an agency of government saddled with the responsibility of perhaps some sort of go-between, but ultimately to ensure satisfaction of both parties in a transaction. Babatunde Rukera, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you.
Now, the CPC is vested with enormous responsibility, and this is in a climb where institutions are said not to be working optimally and sometimes very weak. Let me get your thoughts on the reasons why, for instance, institutions are not working as they should in Nigeria.
Well, I mean, the first thing is to get to the point of answering that question, I'm going to probably have to agree that institutions are not working as they should. And that might be the case in some instances, but that's not entirely the case across the board. And sometimes institutions are doing a lot and modifying behavior in many ways that we do not know. But I do get the sense of what you're saying, that is it possible for institutions to operate more optimally or more efficiently? And the answer to that is absolutely. Now, from a regulatory standpoint, for an institution or a regulator to work well, you really need to understand that there's a complete different mindset between a regulator and a regular other government institution or parastatal. A regulator must understand their role in the market. And they must also understand what their authority is. They must understand the scope of that authority, and they must understand the impact it can have on the market, and then also understand what the national priorities are. Essentially, a regulator must know that the economy is still very important, and promoting commerce is vital, while still engaging that you can ensure confidence in that market. And so if you understand that and recognize what your powers are, you're likely to operate more effectively and efficiently. And finally, the question of resourcing the regulators also arises. And I think that to a lesser extent is also a practical impediment to the effectiveness of regulators.
Only recently, the Nigerian Senate is thinking of dusting up the Stephen Orosayen reports on rationalization and restructuring of some government agencies. Part of his recommendation include putting together the CPC, that's your outfit, and the Standard Organization of Nigeria. Will that be helpful in any way if it gets to be implemented?
Well, I mean, what I would say is I can understand the thinking behind that proposed rationalization. And I think that thinking was based primarily on what the two organizations were and what their real activities were. However, if you would look at what the real importance of each of those organizations, their scope, and what their real intended space should really be, then you would see that sometimes there's a divergence and there's no congruence in what they do all the time. And I'll give you a quick example, if you permit me. For a standards setting authority all over the world, their role is to determine what the appropriate standard is. And once that standard is determined, and it's not unilateral. For instance, there's Codex, which is an international collaboration for determining standards, especially in food and drugs. And so a standards organization works off that, engages other stakeholders, civil society, market operators, and they arrive at a standard for each product, or sometimes even service. And so typically for a service provider or a manufacturer, once you've manufactured something to standard, it's not substandard, it's not counterfeit, and you've complied with the national industrial standards in the case of Nigeria, then you're out the door with the standards organization, meaning that there's absolutely no basis for any liability for any outcome of what that product is. Whereas for a consumer protection authority, while standards are important, they're just, at best, just the beginning. So for a product that is not manufactured up to standard, for me, if that comes to me at the Consumer Protection Council, that's dead on arrival. The manufacturer is already in trouble. However, even when a product is manufactured to standard, that's just one rung in the ladder. What I am looking for as a consumer protector is the safest or the best possible product or service for the consumer, including getting the best value for what they spend. And so a quick example is a discussion or perhaps controversy going around with respect to certain levels of chemical components of carbonated soft drinks. And so those drinks were manufactured to standard. But I now look at it as a Consumer Protection Council and say, is it possible to have a safer product? If the answer is yes, then I'm still going to hold that producer liable for whatever the injury their product causes. And so if you now think about that remit and think about the standards organization remit, you can see where there could be a divergence.
So they're a lot better if they operate separately? I
think for them to truly, fully be effective and have absolutely no conflict in how they carry out their duties, they belong on different sides of the aisle. They're collaborators, they're partners, but there's a point of divergence.